Welcome to Cancer and Peace. My name is Sean Stewart, and I'm here with Peter Scalzo on his 19th year of a very long and drawn-out cancer journey. And we're going to talk about a segment of that journey today. For the last few episodes, we've really talked a lot about exploring the wall and how to not bounce off the wall. And so if you haven't heard about the wall, you might jump back an episode or two, just listen to a little bit of that, because I think it's one of our greatest parts of our formation is that we get in our lives, our inner person formation, how we learn about ourselves and grow is through this journey through the wall, as we call it. So anything you want to introduce in that space too?
Just that I'm hoping people can relate to the concept of the wall, because we're presenting the cancer diagnosis and the cancer journey as a wall.
Yes.
But it could be, relationship difficulties, divorce, separation, could be problems with child, could be a bad church experience, could be a financial problem. But I mean, whatever that wall is, I'm hopeful that this discussion will be helpful for folks.
Yeah. A wall is not a flat tire on the way to work, though.
Yeah.
Or you got a rock on your windshield. Those are not walls.
Right.
Those are life's inconveniences and bumps along the way. But walls are major crises that come in your life. But it can be death, or a big relationship break that was meaningful in your life, or a cancer diagnosis that's going to impact everything about your life is a wall. And so today we thought it would be interesting in our pre-conversation to go back and explore your biggest wall, or what it seems like your biggest wall in your cancer journey. And that is a way of maybe helping to walk through a little bit about helping people to think about their own biggest wall. And so I think what we wanted to do is one of the things we talked about as we've gone through the journey a little bit, your journey, and if you've listened to this podcast much at all, you'll know that we've talked about this idea that there was a period of time where there were medical solutions to your cancer journey. In other words, there were options for treatment that seemed to give a level of hope. But after your surgery in 2017, all of that had come to an end. I think that's where we wanted to maybe kick off the story today. I'll let you start around there, but just to build this into a little bit, because let's explore your biggest wall today.
Yeah, so the 2015 surgery was really the sea change, and I've discussed that quite a bit. 2017 was sitting in the hospital with cancer throughout, and that scene involves my oncologist, my surgeon, and a fellow visiting my room with my daughter there and my brother there to tell me that that's it, we're done. Go home and call hospice, quit work, go on disability, that whole thing. But the cancer turning, for me, the cancer turning from we've got solutions to it's metastatic, and the data that the scientific world has, we don't have a solution for this, dates back to 2015, to that 3-doctor surgery that I had. My lead doctor, Dr. Grasso, said it's probably one of the most intensive surgeries that he's ever done in urology, and he's a world leader on it. And just to give some context, I was with Dr. Grasso yesterday. I've been with him for probably at least 13 years of this journey, and we're at a point where we don't know what to do. We have declining kidney function. We need to put stents in. I had to stop immunotherapy treatment, systemic treatment, because of it. And so I just said, what do you think? He said, we're in uncharted territory. So again, I think throughout this journey, since 2015, I have experienced, which is 9 years, I have experienced that space of the medical community doesn't really know what to do.
And Dr. Grasso's world-class surgeon, best in his field in this area. And so,
I mean, he speaks all around the world.
And so, in all honesty, the kind of things that he's done in rebuilding your insides are amazing, just miraculous. And when you think about it,
because he uses my case when he goes around and talks about, an example of someone who's actually lived. It's this combination of the surgical interventions he's done along with the systemic treatment that I've received and the fact that I'm still living. They call it a miracle, the medical community. I mean, a lot of them talk about the case. So, but I was thinking about, back when, in fact, I was thinking more about the 2017 incident, but we could talk about the 2015 incident. That's really, that was the real.
I think what I'd like to do, it's one of the reasons why I think this is really important for the wall is I've been connecting with this concept of story work. And when you walk through your story, there's trauma involved. And so one of the things that the 2017 story has in it is a form of trauma there. In other words, there's a massive event in your life and how the world responds to, or not just the world, your key contacts, the people around you respond to you and connect with you as you go through a traumatic event. Your body stores that information. And so I like the way Adam Young talks about story work, or when you think about your story, is whenever you encounter a situation in your life, it's as if you have a supercomputer of your brain, and it takes and goes through the catalog of all the events that mirror this in your life. And your body then knows how to respond based upon things that have happened prior. And if you don't have something that matches up with that, then maybe you store new information there in a sense, your computer does. And it's really important that you process, a traumatic event in a healthy way, or you may store this negative emotions and feelings and even a reaction to that happens over time, over and over. And so I'm just doing a little setup here because I wanted to go back and think about this a little bit, is that, and the best thing you can do when you do story work is to think about what's the setting, where are you at, the scene, all the things that are happening there, the sounds, the smells, anything else that's happening there, the temperature, the colors that are there, is really put all the setting together. And then who are the characters in the story? Who's there with you? What do you know about them? What's important about them? How do you relate with them? Emotional connection. These are all real important aspects. And then there's the plot. What happened? The plot line is really important. And so talking about that plot line, the importance of just exploring the intricacies of the plot. What are you bringing into this story? Where is it going? And then there's the response to that is really important too. And so when we store trauma, a lot of times when you go back and look at those characters, the response at the end, for me, as an example, is I have stored traumas from my childhood because when I walked through one of those stories, there was a negative outcome. There was one of those, you idiot moment, how could you be so stupid kind of thing that's attached to it. And so when something similar happens, that's the story that plays in my head is, I'm such an idiot. Why am I so stupid? And the way to get to healing is to go back to that story and share that story with another or with others around you who have the ability to hear that, not from a perspective of criticism, but from entering into with empathy what's really happening, and to give a human response of love. And if you can experience that as you go through that story, your body's emotions can re-heal. How it thinks about that can heal itself, so to speak. And this is a lot of work that Adam Young's doing in his space, in a counseling space that he has out there. And if you're interested in following some of his work, he has podcasts out there that are pretty cool in this area. And so I set all that up to say what I'd like for you to do here is to go back to 2017 and give us just a little bit of lead up. And then your feelings. Okay. Set the stage for us with the whole plot, the characters, and all that we just discussed.
So in order to talk about 2017, I have to mention 2015.
Start as early as you want. That sounds good.
I'll mention that, which was 10 years after my initial major surgery at Sloan Kettering, where they removed the bladder and ureters, prostate. A section of the ureter, but they replaced it with intestinal tissue, and I had several surgeries. But 2015 was major surgery with 3 surgeons and a lot of first impression stuff. But that's when the cancer became metastatic. So high-grade urothelial metastatic cancer has a very low survival rate. At that point, it was 5% for 5 years. So I plummeted into a dark place, and I talked all about processing those emotions of fear and sadness and anger, and I journaled and did all that, and
you
sort
talked
of
to who? When you say you talked about that,
I've publicly in my book here on the podcast.
At the time, though,
at that, you mean when I was processing it, when I was going through it?
Yeah, when you were going through it.
I processed it by myself, really. I did. The interesting thing was, in this journal that I had written in and processed quite a bit, and it had a lot of emotions. It was really interesting because I went into probably 3 churches and just read it up front because the pastors asked me to. Would you read this journal?
Yeah.
Because it showed this journey of, here I am, and the cancer becomes metastatic, and I hit this major wall in my life. What did I do at the wall? I basically walked away and didn't want to deal with it, and sort of said, God, where are you? And all the stuff that we've talked about before. But you want me to talk about 2017, right?
No, actually, I think listening to this more, I think it would be good for us to spend some time with the 2015.
Okay.
Because it really is, as you noted, the sea change. We talked about 2017 because of the nature of that. But I think this is actually good because it's such a big change in the wall as you were going on. Can you go back and do a little bit more on the setting there? Because I know that you've told this story about reaching this point of it being like the darkest depression that you've been at.
Yep.
And I think it might be good just to share how it got there and where you were at inside too, because it's a recognition when some of the things I remember about the story, just to help a little bit and just in maybe jogging the memory. Not that I think it's really clear for you, but I remember you saying, hey, I didn't want anybody there. And you would allow one of your kids to come in maybe at a time, or they were there just as in presence, and maybe they would read scripture or something like that while you were there. Yeah. Set that scene for us really well.
It's a high emotional scene. I feel my emotions kind of bubbling up right now because of that scene. But
which emotion do you feel that when it's coming? What's the first emotion you're feeling?
The overwhelming nature of it, and how
sadness,
fear and sadness
fear and sadness. They were negative emotions you were feeling.
Those were the biggies.
That comes to you almost immediately when you think about that scene. Is fear and sadness.
Yep. So in 2005, I had major surgery down at Sloan Kettering, and they removed those parts and
go back and touch for. So what caused them to? Like, you had been in a place where they were saying, hey, when you went into the surgery, what were they telling you they were going to do? What was your expectations?
Yeah, so I'll just back up a little bit. One of my major fears in my life, and I've said this before, even as a young man, was to face a life-threatening illness. I didn't like hospitals. I didn't like people who were really sick. And my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and I was real close to her, and it was a terminal illness. And so I processed that with her, meaning came alongside of her. I still struggled. I couldn't really do it with her, but I remember writing this letter to her and just expressing my sadness, but my gratitude to her as a mom, and I felt a huge burden come off. But I would say I was dealing with great amount of fear and sadness just witnessing her journey.
You said you couldn't do it with her. Do you mean that you struggled with entering into her pain with her empathizing and entering into her pain?
Yeah, I just wanted to gloss over it and not get into the depths of it with her. I just wanted to say, "Oh, Mom, everything's going to be okay, and we're going to
Perfect. I want to stop there for a
this."
second.
Yeah,
Because and just as a pause, I want us to delve into the story, but this is such a big statement. Is that, hey, you're coming into your own cancer journey. You struggle with entering into your mom's journey and pain, and when I asked you what it was, you were basically saying, hey, you wanted to gloss over. And the reason why I want to highlight this, I think a lot of people don't know what it means to enter. Like, I can't physically feel the pain right now. Like, you're dealing with kidney failure right now. I can't physically feel. So how do I enter into your pain? And one of the ways that we can do that is our presence. Means that in a neurological sense, in us sitting here together, we can share in your journey and story our emotions and a level of connection. And whenever someone says, hey, gives you a quick fix, it's all going to be better.
right.
Don't worry, it's all going to be fine. This is a way of not entering into it emotionally. It is saying to the other person, hey, I can't sit with you in that and just accept that you're in this pain and that I don't have an answer. I need to give you a fix, and it's really for themselves.
Yes, it was for me for sure.
Yes, and so when you said,
it was
hey,
to soothe me,
right? And but I'm trying to put some clarity, because I think a lot of times people don't actually realize that. I was listening to a podcast really recently that's really good, and it's one of our mutual friends sent it over, and it was Sitting in the Dirt. And Sitting in the Dirt was such a great example, because they shared, hey, sometimes you actually just want to say at the end of something, something to make yourself feel better, because you want to say a word of comfort.
Right.
And entering into somebody's pain may be, wow, and how do you feel now?
Right.
Can we explore that a little bit more? Because that says, I'm interested in where you're at, and I want to know more. If I give you a quick fix, it's all going to be okay. I might be saying, at least, depending on how I say it, I've heard enough, and I just want you to know you're going to be fine, because I need to be fine.
Yeah.
And so I love the fact that you put some clarity about what you needed to tell your mom. You admitted you couldn't enter into her pain.
Yeah,
and you gave her glossed over ways of avoiding it.
And I think she wasn't at a place of acceptance either. Like, she was not talking about death and, kind of doing an end of life journey at all. She wasn't focusing on that at all. And so I think in some ways that's okay, but in other ways it's not dealing with reality. And we talk about that kind of denying the elephant in the room kind of thing. And I think I was uncomfortable bringing it up. And to me, death was super scary. I didn't even want to think about not having Mom around my life. So, I didn't deal with it either. I didn't say anything about it. And then in the context of that, I wasn't feeling well for a year.
That's good. Let's pause there one more time, because there's two ways that we can avoid, or we can not enter into. One is to put a bow on it. I'm praying for you. All's going to be well.
Yep.
And then you also then describe the other side, which is, I don't ask questions. I don't enter in at all, because I don't want to know.
Right.
I can't bear to know.
Right.
Maybe as a way. And so I isolate myself from that by not asking questions. And so you use the term, and I love this, the elephant in the room. We all know that there's potential death on the horizon. And I think you're getting ready to describe that for yourself, what you were dealing with. The elephant in the room is who's willing to stand up there, recognizing that, and enter into that journey with you, rather than just say, I'm going to avoid that, I'm not going to get near it, or I'm going to give you a pat answer.
Right.
Because that great middle ground of entering into it is, hey, I smell death here.
Right. And that avoidance and also putting a bow on it, those two methods you gave were my two methods. And even after a year of not feeling well, visiting different urologists, and finally ending up at, a local urologist scoped me and found cancer in my bladder. Then I ended up down at Memorial Sloan Kettering. The cancer had actually grown, and they recommended that my bladder be removed and section of the ureter and also the prostate, which they did. But the message was, if it's outside of the bladder, we're not sure, you're going to live about 6 months.
So this is going into 2015 surgery.
Yep. Mom's still living.
Mom's still alive.
Yep.
But it looked like, hey, they're probably just going to remove the bladder and take all of that. And yes, it's not a pleasant thing. And are you walking in with the belief that good chance that they'll just remove my bladder and we're going to be moving forward? What's in your mind right now?
What's in my mind is it's contained within the bladder, and we're going to remove the prostate, bladder, sections of the ureter. I'm going to have a long recovery and a long adjustment to this new system, but I'm going to be cancer free. And I'm not going to deal with the question of death or
who else
uncertainty.
Knows that? I mean, who all's involved in this understanding, decision making? At that point, who's your support team?
Yeah, my Leslie, my wife at the time, was there. My brother Paul was there, and Mom was on her own journey, so she couldn't really. She was emotionally present for me, but not physically present.
Your
and
kids?
My dad, no, my kids were younger at that point. They were, I think that I kind of shielded them a little bit back then.
They were teenagers at least. So
you
shielded them. Yeah.
They knew what was going on, but they weren't present at like the surgery or
they
that
knew
kind of thing.
Cancer. They didn't know how serious.
Right.
They didn't know how
and
serious.
I had some really good friends, David Scribner, some folks that had really come alongside of me, some buddies who were part of Johnny D, part of this journey. So I did have community around me.
Now I'm going to ask a hard question, and you may not feel like answering it. So who are the characters that are missing in this story? Because that's just as important as the ones that are there.
Wow. Well, one character that was missing was my dad, I feel like. Mm-hmm. That's probably the biggie for me.
That's interesting. Yeah. And that probably impacts your story quite a bit in how you interact, is his ability to enter into your pain with you.
Right.
In the same way that you struggle with entering into your mom's pain.
Correct. Yeah.
Sounds like a family of origin type of
it is
of a storyline that's happening here. Yeah, interesting.
Totally. And so I did well through the surgery. I mean, obviously it was serious and life-changing, life-altering, but I did well, and Mom did pass in October.
Well, you're going too fast for me.
Oh, sorry.
You went into this surgery in 2015.
Yep. No, 2005.
2005. I'm sorry, but the
original.
So back to 2015, though.
Okay. 10
setting
years
up
later.
for that, where they're doing that surgery, you're going into that with a different. What was your understanding going into that? Because that's what I thought we were leading into here pretty quick.
2015 was a completely different ballgame. Even though the PET scan, CAT scan, and MRI didn't show cancer outside of the area, we couldn't see it. We couldn't really see cancer. We knew something was going on from the fluids and things.
So at that point in time, you didn't have a bladder. You already had...
Oh, my neobladder, yeah.
Yeah, so you'd had a bladder that was reconstructed out of tissues, and so they were going to go explore that because... Right, that's what's going on in 2015.
Yeah, I'm basically, we're analyzing urine. He's flushing things through he's going in through the back, through the kidneys, and flushing fluids through, and suspicious cells are coming out, but we're not sure where any tumors are. And so we know something's going on. So he says, I'm going to have to reopen the same 14-inch incision that he did. He also did major surgery in 2011 because, again, we thought I had cancer, but it turned out to be an appendix that was attached to it's this long story, but I was in the hospital 30 days for that. But anyway, he redid my system, but in 2015, that was a cancer event. That was a big time recurrence.
So
And
you knew it was
Sloan had
cancerous.
only seen that a handful of times.
Okay. You knew it was cancerous coming in, but it was uncertain as to the depth of it.
Correct. I thought it'd be something simple. Let's remove this tumor. Let's redo your system, and then we'll close you up, and we'll go back to business as usual.
And that's what they were communicating. They hoped also.
Correct. But Grasso still needed 3 surgeons there because there were so much scar tissue. That one surgeon just focused on that. There were a lot of moving parts for this surgery. It was 10 hours with these 3 guys.
So you're going into 2015. Tell me your support network in 2015 going into that surgery.
Probably the same as before.
Mom had passed by then, though.
Yeah. My brother's been a constant.
Yep. Yes.
And I don't know if my dad was there.
Your kids were that's why
my kids stayed with me in the hospital. Yeah, my son was there. I can't remember exactly who was there during the 10 hours, but my kids stayed with me in the hospital for whatever, 3 weeks to a month, however long it was.
The reason why I'm asking the question is so it'll help maybe with the storyline a little bit, is you're going into this 2015 surgery, and I'm trying to get, what did you believe when you started out? What's the setting of what's your mindset going in?
Yeah.
Who's your support network around you? Because in the matter of a few hours, your world's going to change. This wall's going to be there. And so I'm kind of wanting you to preset the scene. Yeah. So that's why I'm asking the questions of who's your support network? What are you believing going in? And then here you are, as you come out, you're getting ready to get a wall given to you. Mm-hmm. What does it look like? And what did you feel? That's where I'm going with this.
I mean, my support network is my buddies, guys like you and Johnny D, and my brother, and
at this time it was your kids.
Some more friends. Yeah, a couple of my kids, and my kids were certainly invested in it. I can't think of anyone new that I've added to that network. And the feeling was, this is business as usual. Yes, it is major surgery, but we're going to redo everything and come through this, and we're going to there's probably little remnants of tumor activity going on, but Grasso's just going to remove it. We're going to be fine. So, yeah, I'm all psyched. Let's do this thing. Let's get her done, as they would say.
Yeah, get her done. Yeah.
From your neck of the woods. And so we
That's you mocking me, isn't it?
No, just being respectful of your roots. So, and then waking up after that 10-hour surgery, that's when my world collapsed.
So I want details now, though. So you wake up.
So I'm sitting.
What you're hearing, seeing, smelling.
I'm lying there in ICU. Grasso's sitting on my bed. They already transferred me from the recovery room to an ICU recovery room.
So you're waking up in this room. Yep. Your doctor, the head surgeon, is sitting right there.
There's tubes all in my abdomen. I'm hooked up to all kinds of things, machines. I'm the only one in the room.
Groggy. So it's just you and Grasso.
Yep. And there's nurses roaming around, but
people you don't know. Yeah.
My recollection is, but it's dark out, and it was light when we went in, and I'm thinking, gosh, this wasn't like a few hour surgery. What's going on? And I look over at my pillow, and there's plumbing drawings by permanent marker right on the pillow sheet. I don't know what that is. And Grasso's there, and he said it was much worse than what we thought. He said we got in there, and it was a disaster, is basically. I was cutting tumors around your aorta. There was tumors everywhere.
Now, are you mentally aware enough to digest this at this point?
Okay. I was mentally aware to have the feeling that my feet were pulled out from under me. What's the scariest? I mean, what's that?
No, I'm even thinking about, what was it like for Grasso to communicate this message to you? Also, what are you supposed? Because he was there by himself.
He's a surgeon, and he's direct. Always been direct with me, and honest. And yes, had to be tough for him.
Yeah.
Forget about clean margins and all that stuff. He was just cutting tumors away. He was redoing ureters because there were tumors in there. he was finding it in the kidney. You know, he was finding tumors in the whole area, the region there, you know, wrapped around aorta, like I said, but also, and so he didn't download too much to me right then because I had a whole recovery to do, but I knew enough from my own research and what this meant. And my mind and soul immediately went to, I'm going to die. Immediately.
When he told you that?
We're done. Yeah.
So it's you and him in this room.
Yep.
And nurses coming in and out,
Yep.
and he's communicating to you what feels like a death sentence.
Yes. Oh, totally. It was. That's what the fact was. I mean,
no, it felt like it because the fact is you're still sitting here talking to me today.
Right, but so I mean,
he's communicating what feels like a death sentence.
Scientifically.
Yes, I know what you mean.
Their data.
I'm not trying to downplay. It's like there's your odds of, I guess it is a death sentence, and whether or not the sentence gets commuted or not is right. So maybe you're right. It was. Yeah, you're right. It was.
And so I had already had 2 of these major surgeries before, where they 14-inch incision tubes, can't eat, nothing by mouth for 30 days, and intestines shut down, and not being able to do narcotic pain meds, and just the misery of the hard work and misery in recovering from these big abdominal surgeries. And I assessed it quickly, and when I was lying there, I was like, no, I'm not going to do this recovery.
I'm going to stop you now.
Yeah.
Because what you just said is what I was talking about before. You had prior trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And your mind went through the catalog of this pre-trauma, and it went back to that last trauma or two and said, this is what it means.
Yep.
And the response wasn't positive. It was negative.
I was done with the cancer space.
You were done.
I was done.
Yeah. So trauma, and as your brain processed that trauma, I'm actually interested too, as you're thinking about this, is you were given a trauma of those similarities plus the worst news you've ever received in your entire life because you got a death sentence. And so, and it was just you and Dr. Grasso in the room.
Yep.
Give me the next few moments.
Well, I got to give you the next morning. Can I?
No, not yet. I want you to, but I actually want to hear the next few moments before you do.
Okay. My only recollection is the blackness in the room.
So you don't actually have a recollection of Dr. Grasso walking out, any details?
I don't.
From that point, you go black in your memory.
And the darkness in the room.
So you don't know when he left.
Bleakness.
You don't know when anybody else showed up. You don't remember anything from that point in your current.
Not that night.
Well, that's really interesting because you came to coherence.
Mm-hmm.
You were given a message. Your mind associated trauma.
Mm-hmm.
You heard the death sentence, and it goes black until the next morning.
Frozen, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm wanting to just connect all of our listeners. This is the wall. I mean, you are at a place of an event in your life that's such great trauma. And so I just wanted to pause here and I want us to pause and feel that moment with you. It's like the feeling of that blackness, even in that moment. And that's what you've recorded in your mind. And if I can empathize for a second, to feel the aloneness. And I know Dr. Grasso is a great doctor, but he's not your emotional support team.
Right.
You were there without anybody there to receive that message, to feel it with you. You were given this message, from him alone, in a sense. And I'm not trying to take him away from his humanity and ability to feel, but he's not your emotional support team. He's your world-class surgeon. And without that, all you can record at this moment in time or tell us about is blackness. Is I feel the weight of that just sitting here listening to it, just in what you share.
Yeah.
And it can be hard to sit there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I wish I had. All I could say is an incredibly deep heaviness and darkness is my recollection of what was going on. It was past the point of just sadness. It was almost like shock, and everything I thought about life was just such a life-altering moment.
Any
faith-altering moment.
Sounds.
Well, certainly the latex, the operating room kind of ICU smells that I'm telling you, my hospital stays, I'm nauseous just about all the time in my hospital stays.
This is an important reason why I asked that is that as the way our body stores information is like whatever smells, sounds, things that are with that are stored with that trauma because our body uses our senses for
the beep beep of the machines.
Yes.
When I hear it now, I'm like, oof, because I have to go into hospitals all the time.
Yeah.
The machine that does your, the IVs, and when it makes that noise when it's done, or if there's a whatever blockage or whatever, it makes that noise. Oh man.
And it makes you feel what?
Fear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fear and pain.
Yeah.
Suffering.
I have traumas I have responses to sounds too and smells, things like that. And so I think this is such a fascinating thing is if you can see how this attaches to your story.
In 2005, I used a certain shaving cream in the bathroom at Sloan Kettering, and I had my gown on and all the tubes, and I intentionally don't buy that shaving cream because if I'm shaving with that shaving cream, I get a flashback of that bathroom scene.
Yeah. We're at past our normal time for what we would give for a podcast, and I'm going to maybe think about doing something really unorthodox for a second. We started out and talked about being able to enter into pain. Like you talked about your own mom's cancer journey and your inability to sit in that and to be able to live in empathy. And so we're here in your story today, and you took us to the death sentence and the blackness. And I'm going to ask if on the next podcast you would pick up on the next morning.
Yeah.
And the reason why is that it'll emphasize something is that if you're listening to this and you've heard Peter's story a little bit, and our goal with this is to not make you squeamish about something, but it is to think about the journey to peace is actually learning how to share our pain with one another, to sit in that, to be present in that. And so, and my hope is that in his story, there's a bit of presence, you being able to experience Peter's life with him, and then take some time this next week to think about your own pain. Where are you sitting that? And the people around you, you might be somebody who's providing for somebody's cancer journey, and just thinking about hearing and not having an answer, hearing and just being, because that's where presence and healing happens in the ability to empathize. I don't need to give you a fix, and you don't need to give others a fix. It's presence is such an important part of this for finding peace. And so I would love let's pick this up the next morning in our next podcast, just to continue this forward, because I think this is such a powerful story that you've gone through. And the more you can share your journey through the wall, I think it might help others as they process their own journey through the wall. And I don't know, is that helpful? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
So
helpful to me.
Hopefully
it's helpful to others. Yeah.
So we're going to pause here today in this podcast. And I think what we've done is just show a picture of what a dark night of the soul looks like, what the wall looks like. And I love St. John on the Cross. He named it the dark night of the soul. And you just described darkness and a place of blackness and the whys behind that. And the ability to feel that with you is it's an honor. And so next time we'll pick up, how did you walk the next steps? What does it look like to journey through the wall? You've got us to the wall. Now, how do you journey through the wall? And a little bit of that journey through this wall is where we'll pick up.
Great.
So thank you everyone for listening. Grateful for everybody who has listening. And so if you want more resources, check out cancerandpeace.com, and we'll share more next time.
Great. Thank you.